All right. Yesterday we said something very, very beautiful, and that the world was created with 10 utterances and also with one utterance. That's what it says in Pirkei Avot. And God could have created the world with one utterance, but He created it with 10 in order to give reward to the good people and punishment for the bad people. So the Rebbe said, but one second, if He could have created it with one, so that's what the world really is. It's made from one. Why, just embellish something that doesn't need embellishment? The world could create it with one. So the Rebbe said, no, the world is created with 10 utterances and with one utterance. What does this mean? What does it mean? So the Rebbe says like this: 10 utterances is all the details of the world. the world, the world in its multi-phased, right, ultimate, infinite diversity of atoms and quarks and animals and plants and things under the sea and molecules and all these different in the world. Who knows how many atoms there are? What's in the outer space? People don't. The world, amazing, and that's only the physical world. What about the spiritual worlds? All the angels and the levels and the this. They're talking about this. That's all the 10. That's the 10 utterances. What's the one utterance? The one utterance is the fact that it exists. The fact that the upper worlds exist, the lower worlds exist, that is an equal miracle, that there is existence. The fact that things are, that's the godly part. That's the godly part. That's God's ability to create something from what we call nothing, to create a world from a non-world, from non-being, to make being from non-being. God's ability to do. That's what it means that God created from one utterance. And that one utterance is what gives us the power to reveal godliness in every situation. In other words, the world, that's the 10 utterances. And the world tells us there's a past, there's a future. According to who you are, you can't improve it. Just think about who you were in the past. Look how intimidating the future is. Look how, and it makes you feel small, helpless, worthless, meaningless, right? The world is so big. That's the 10 utterances. The one utterance is you exist, you're here, then you're godly. God is creating you from nothing. Yeah, but look why, forget about that. That's the world. That's the world. Now take this fact that you're being created and use this in the world, in the 10 utterances. That everything in the world should reflect the fact that God is creating it from nothing. And He's creating it for a purpose. Everything in the world. And that's what it means, the upper world's coming down below and the lower world's going up. That's what happened when God gave the Torah. He revealed His oneness. This is stressed also in the preparations of giving of the Torah by means of Sfirat Omer, counting the Omer. That's what we do these 49 days, counting the Omer from Passover until Atzeret, until Shavuot. Matan Torah. Matan Torah came after the Jews left Egypt. Right? God gave the Torah 50 days after the Jews left Egypt. Nigla Aleim, in Egypt, God revealed. What did He reveal? He revealed Himself, the King of kings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's kings of kings, that's all the spiritual worlds. And God is the king of all of these 4 spiritual worlds. Right? Malchi is two kings, that's Bria and Atzilut and Bria, and Malachim, that's Yetzirah and all of God Himself, Kavod Ba'atzmo, took the Jews out of Egypt. Why? Kadei, in order, like God said to Moses on the burning bush, when I take the Jews out of Egypt, they will serve God al harazeh, on this mountain. Even since shekavana, that the whole purpose of Matan Torah, giving the Torah, he is chibur elyoni v'tachtonim, to join the upper worlds with the lower worlds. Elyonim. Now, again, God, you can ask yourself a question: why did God even have to make lower worlds? Don't make any troubles, and you don't make people sick, and don't make people healthy. You don't have to have doctors. Don't have sick. What did he have to make the lower worlds for? So the answer to that is that God knows why. We don't know why, but he did it. And one thing we can look at it is that God wants there to be free will. The angels, so to speak, they don't have free will. We have free will. That's what God wants. God wants man to be in his image, just like God can do whatever he wants. We can do whatever we want, of course, within limits. You can't jump over the moon or something, but and you would, but within limits, we can do whatever we want to. Especially what we can do is we can oppose God. We can oppose God, no problem. And what happens to people that oppose God? Absolutely nothing. Maybe in the long run, after the long run, it doesn't really work out. Here we see the Jewish people still exist, and Haman and Achashverosh and all these, Hitler and all these people. But nevertheless, we can't see any big advantage to doing what God wants. We should do what God wants, because that's what he wants, right? That's a big, big, big novelty. And this gives God pleasure when this novelty is done. Okay. Well, it says, God took the Jews, God helps us. He took the Jews out of Egypt. And why? In order to serve God on this mountain. Even since the whole intention of giving the Torah is joining the upper worlds with the lower worlds, the upper worlds came down below. Down below. God came into God came into the world. But tachtonim yalulamaya elyonim, and the lower worlds, they go up to God. The chibur amiti, this is a true joining. Lo ba'ofen shel elyon yored elyos. Not that the upper worlds came down, and when they came down into the world, they weren't upper worlds anymore. And they just came down like a professor, and he wants to talk to a third grade child. So he speaks in lower language. He's still a professor, but he speaks simple things. That's not what happened in Mount Sinai. When God came on Mount Sinai, he spoke godly words, himself, his essence. But if God would come down into the world, and he would not be so godly anymore, so that wouldn't be really called making a dwelling for himself in the world. It wouldn't really be he himself, right? The professor is talking to this little child. It's not really the professor that's doing it, right? That's not the professor as a professor. Same thing, if God would come down to the world and lower himself down, so that's not really godly, that's not the whole thing. So God wants his essence to be here in the world. But tachtonos and the lower worlds should be elevated from their lowness. But if the lower worlds would stop being low, in other words, there wouldn't be any more eating and no more sleeping, and there wouldn't be any more jobs, and people would just walk around like zombies with like these smiles on their faces and just sort of coast, along in white garments, then that wouldn't be the world. That's not the world. God wants there to be a world just like it is now, and everybody with their personalities as they are now, but just not to do forbidden things, and he has to do good things. But the upper worlds, as they are in the highest level, should come down into the world, and the lower worlds should be elevated in a normal way. That's something like the difference between the giving of the Torah and the Holy Temple. When God gave the Torah, God came into the world, but the world didn't accept it, couldn't accept it. Everybody still. So God put it into a Holy Temple, and the Holy Temple was part of the world. It was a building, but it still is not really world. When you went to the Holy Temple, it was a different place. It was on a mountain. It was you had to sanctify yourself. What God wants is that the whole world should be like the Holy Temple, but it should be the way it is. In other words, everything in the world should be holy. You should feel godliness in everything. So your dog or your cat or your car and your shoes, and these things are not religious items. They're not religious, but everything in the world should reveal that it's being created by God, and it's being created by God for a purpose. And the purpose of shoes is to put on your feet and walk to good places. It's not to fly in the air or whatever. So the world will be a world, but God will come and reveal in the world. That's what the thing of counting the Omer is. Counting the Omer is. What happened? Oh, this is all done by means of Sfirat Omer, counting the Omer. The whole idea of counting the Omer from the day after Passover, and you should make it says the it says Sheva Shabbatot, 7 weeks you count, altogether 50 days. And of course, we only count 49. What does this mean? What are we supposed to be doing? And the service of us means, and it says you're supposed to start counting the day after Shabbat, which is not so. You count the day after Passover. The Tzaddukim said the day after Shabbat, but they were wrong. They were wrong. And the day after Shabbat means the day after Passover. Why is it called the day after Shabbat? Why does the Torah say the day after Passover? It says because Machrot Shabbat means that you begin the counting from the revelation of God's essence. That's Shabbat. Shabbat is the day that God reveals himself in his essence. That's what happens every Shabbat. So after this revelation, then you start counting. Shalom Maila, first of all, there's a revelation from above any divisions of the world. That's Shabbat. Then it should shine, and you should count. Sapir means to shine like a sapphire. Sapir, bihirut, means to shine out. Bapirte hischalkus amidos, into all the different details of human personality. The Sheva Shabbatot, 7 times 7, which are in man, which are in the world. That's what we said before. That's the 10 utterances that God created the world with. So we start off, first of all, with Shabbat. That's one, the oneness of God. Passover, Pesach, when the oneness of God revealed in the world, that's the one. And then afterwards, we revealed it in the 10, in the different aspects of the creation, which was created by 10 utterances, until Yidgala will be revealed. Tispru also means reveal. L'saper means to speak. Tispru means also to speak, to reveal. The Yachtor Ba'em Gilui Dion Hachamishim. There will be revealed the revelation of the 50th day. Now we count only 49 days, but by means of our work, 49 days, we reveal the 50th day. What's the 50th day? This is the 50th gate of understanding, which is above all the 49 gates, the 7 times 7 that are relevant to the world. Then God, that's what we do, the 49. Then God does his thing and he reveals the 50th gate. That's when we got the Torah. And in this 50th gate itself, Bashar Chamishim, it says not just the lower aspect of the 50th gate of understanding, which is relevant to the previous days before. Therefore, it's part of it. It says we should count 50 days. That's the lower part of the 50th day, the lower part of what's called the crown of God. Elagama Darga Elioni, but even the highest levels, higher totally than the 49 previous gates of understanding that we opened up each day that we counted the Omer. That's what we're supposed to be thinking, at least a little bit. That's we reveal again what was revealed in Egypt, that the essence of God was revealed in Egypt, but then it was revealed, nobody could accept it. Nobody could accept it. It was there to decimate Egypt. That's not what God wants. God does not want to decimate or destroy anything in the world. Holiness means in the world, but the world has to be different, has to act differently, feel differently. And that's accomplished by counting 49 days. And on the 50th day, you get that revelation that was back then in Egypt, but it's now acceptable to the world. It's drawn down on the 50th day. And we can add on that this year, that the counting of the Sfirat Omer, okay, we didn't do that. The year that the Rebbe is speaking is he started counting the Omer on Saturday night, on Motzi Shabbos. We don't do that, okay. Especially Sfirat Omer, there's a special connection between Sfirat Omer and the first day of the month of Sivan, which that's going to be not next week, but the week after that on Thursday, on Friday. On Friday. On Friday, right? That's the day after my mother passed away. My mother passed away. This is already how long ago? 34 years ago. It doesn't seem like yesterday. 34 years ago. Okay, so the day after that, that's the first day of Sivan. The first day of Sivan. A special connection to what we're talking about and the first day of Sivan. Now, the first day of Sivan, that's when the Jewish people went into the desert of Sinai. They came into the desert of Sinai. We talked about that. B'Shvua Zayin, in the 7th week, on the 3rd day of the 7th week, that's when they went into Sinai. It's as though the whole week came in. Shleimus Sachana, this is the preparation of the giving of the Torah by means of counting the Omer. The 3rd day of the week, that was the first day of Sivan back then. The 3rd day of the 7th week, this is after they already finished counting 44 days of the counting of the Omer. Sheba'em, that in them is including, this is the main service of counting the Omer. If we're talking about counting the Omer, is refining the 7 emotions of our personality. So the 6 were of the emotions were purified completely. And the 7th, the first 3 aspects of it, Chachma, Bina, Dat, the Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, they were refined also. They've done already 49 aspects. These are the 49 levels, 49 Bechinas Yanika. These are the 49 levels of nurture from the forces of evil. Even though that Chalav, Megadel, mistake. This is the 49 days in Yanika. A child nurtures from his mother's breast. It's also called Yanika. Like, for instance, milk, which makes the child grow. This is growing the emotions of the animal soul and transforming them by means of drawing intellect of Yanika. A child, human beings, they nurture from the mother's breasts. The mother's breasts in human beings are near the heart, which is not the case in animals. The breasts of the animals, that's in the place of excrement. Where they go to the bathroom, right underneath, that's where the udder is, and the right, which is not the case. It says by human beings that the breasts are the makom bina, the heart. And so the child, by means of nurturing from the heart, we're talking about the good side of it, child nurturing from the breasts of his mother, that increases his intellect. The heart is the place of understanding, it says. The heart understands. So therefore, in these 44 days of counting the Omer, this, and it says also the milk. Where does the milk come from? The milk comes from the mother's blood. That's why a woman has to eat nourishingly in order to nurture her children. Blood is dam. Dam is 44. This is 44. That's when the first day of Sivan occurs, on the 44th day of counting the Omer. And these days of counting the Omer, we came out of Egypt. That's our birth. The birth of the Jewish people was when they came out of Egypt. Egypt was like the womb. That's the whole thing of the Pesach offering, why we put the sheep. It says the head is it's like a fetus. We make it like a fetus. The Jewish people simulated what they were in Egypt. And they came out with the Paschal lamb, was like a fetus. They became born. And the first 49 days after they came out of Egypt, before they received the Torah, that's like nursing from the mother's milk, baby. That's because the milk comes from the mother's blood. Dam is 44. So this is already a preparation for the child to be able to eat bread. That's when the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. The Torah is called My Bread. We just finished learning that, right, in Likkutei Torah. Since that the main service of refining the emotions, okay. Since the main thing of refining the emotions by means of the revelation of a light which is able to be drawn into the emotions. In other words, understanding God and taking it, evaluating God. That's what are emotions. The word for emotions in Hebrew is the same word as measurements, midot. Midot. How we measure things in the world, that's how we get emotional about them. If something is a little child, right? Somebody takes his stick, found a stick, somebody takes it, he goes crazy. That by him is the most valuable thing in the world, this stick. An older person doesn't value it, so he doesn't get emotional about it. Doesn't get emotional about it. The same thing with money, with the world. If you think that everything comes from God, so you deal with the world, but you don't get so emotional about it. You don't get so emotional about the world. So I lost money. Oh yeah, I'm gonna jump out of a window. It's not the end of the world, right? It's not the, that's what it means, bringing godliness into emotions. That your emotions become more mature, but not just mature in a financial world or whatever it is, or interpersonal relationships. That could also be true. That's also, but we're talking about mature as far as relation to the truth. That you get excited about true things, that you're happy about true things, that you desire truth. And that's what the Jews worked at. How do we know what truth is? What the Torah says is true. And so that's what the idea of counting the Omer is supposed to be, even for us now. So the Rebbe says the first 44 days, those are the main days. And on that day, the Jews came into the desert of Sinai. That's when they were really ready to receive the Torah. That's the intellect of God, pure, godly intellect. They refine their emotions so that they're mature enough spiritually to receive the Torah from God. And this we're going to have to do tomorrow. That was mainly the thing of Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer, which is Hod Shabbat. And this requires a little bit of an explanation. We're going to have to do this tomorrow. Will we be able to finish tomorrow? Probably not. So we'll have to do we have tomorrow on Friday. So we'll do Friday also. Okay, good. So tomorrow, God willing, we will continue. Where are we now up to now? We're up to here. 71, 72. There we are. That's also Lag BaOmer. Good. Now we have the Yom Yom.